Am I the idiot for asking my step-siblings to take a DNA test? I, female 34, am the firstborn child from my father's, male 68, second marriage. My dad married his previous wife, female 60s, most likely above 65, very young as she had gotten pregnant with my oldest half-brother, Mark, male 48. They had 2 more children in total together, Mindy and Martin, female 44, 40M. They got divorced because his previous wife was cheating on him with another married man. He later on married my mom a few years later, and we're 4 siblings in total: me, Adam, Anna, and Aaron, male 30, female 26, 23M. There have always been rumors that my 2 youngest half-siblings, Mindy and Martin, aren't my dad's but the AP's children, but we've dismissed them as we don't have much of a relationship with them from the get-go. Their mother is a really toxic person who we've avoided most of our lives, and because of her the relationship between our step-siblings has always been strained. Dad is a hugely successful business owner, and he has always provided for all his children. He has paid for all our education so we all could live a debt-free life, has helped with businesses or getting us work, even helped us buy our own homes. A few years ago, when Martin was jailed for fraudulent checks, my father paid off all his fines, bail and lawyer fees, which included the amount he owed, all $300K in total. Yet he hasn't received so much as a thank you from any of my half-siblings. On the other hand, they constantly fight with him, accusing him of liking my siblings and I over them, and resenting my mother for no apparent reason. They've always used their father as a money bag and felt entitled to it. In fact, Mark recently came over to Dad and told him that he needs to know what Dad intends to leave them in his will to make sure they will be treated fairly. This pissed me off, as Dad is healthy and fit as ever. I suggested all of Dad's children take a DNA test, then we can go over his will and what he wishes to leave us. Apparently this was the wrong thing to say. Soon I was getting angry calls from my half-siblings and their mother calling me all sorts of names, and my stepmother even called me a wicked, foolish little wench. While Dad hasn't said much on the matter, he has become awfully quiet, which is what he does when he's upset, whether it's with me or my half-brother, which I'm unsure about. My mother did say that I shouldn't have said anything, knowing how volatile my stepmother and step-siblings can be, and we could have dealt with this issue when the time was right. So am I the idiot here? Edit. Apologies, as I'm not a native English speaker, but I meant half-siblings and previous wife instead of step-siblings and stepmother. Edit. I feel there needs to be more backstory, as some of you think I'm being greedy or want the money for myself. That's not the case. While I thank my dad, as I wouldn't be where I am today without his help, I'm very financially stable and can live a comfortable life without his inheritance. Same goes for most of my siblings. Only the youngest, who has chosen to join my father's business, is slightly dependent on him, but he is a very hard worker, and my father is very proud of him. As for my half-siblings, when we were kids, my father tried to take Mark under his wing and had him join the company. Taught him all the ropes, and as in every work environment, you're expected to wake up early and do your job. Mark didn't like this, calling my father a bad father, as he was spoiling us rotten, yet expected him to act as his slave. He was an adult then, but wanted to be treated the same as a child, to wake up late, not have any responsibilities, and get paid for doing basically nothing. His mother backed him up and badmouthed my father wherever she went. After a huge fight where he insulted my father in front of his employees, my dad fired him. Mark says he quits. It was the same with the other 2. Mindy started a fight, bringing her mother along to face my father as to why her mother doesn't have nice jewelry like my mother does, and how he raised them in poverty. My father's business was in the early stages then, but they were far from poor. They went to the best private schools, and my father got their mother diamond rings, expensive necklaces, and even bought her gold bangles from a trip to Iran. Yes, it wasn't as much as today, but they still felt she was entitled to the same treatment as his current wife, my mother. All the while, their mother sat silent, acting like the victim. That's why I say this isn't the first time they've done this, and I hate to see my dad's blood pressure go up because of them. He's the type of person who'll go silent when angry, then blow up like a volcano when provoked to the point of no return. And it's always because of my half-siblings. This might seem like a lie, but we value our father more than the money. So I told them to get a DNA test to put them in their place. The money they feel entitled to, and the father they have been bad-mouthing all these years, all for a woman who has been lying and manipulating them all their lives. Yes, I did it out of pettiness, but if I'm being honest, I don't regret it one bit. In fact, I wish I had said it sooner. I'll take the idiot title with pride if it comes to it. Edit. I meant half-siblings, not step-siblings, and my father's previous wife, not stepmother. That's what we call them in my language, so I confused the two in my previous post. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You're the idiot. Your dad obviously knows that there's a chance any of the older kids may not be his since the SM cheated on him, and that's why they divorced, but obviously he's still treating them the same. If he had any reservations, he could have gotten a paternity test in any of the previous 40+ years since they've been born. A paternity test probably will not matter, as he's been treating these kids as his since they've been born. It's none of your goddamn business who or what he leaves in his will, or whether they are or are not his biological children. I know Mark was being rude and asking what he was going to get, but your snarky remark did not make anything better. You need to apologize to your dad. Comment 2. Everyone sucks here. Bringing up the will was tacky, yes? But it's not your place to tell your dad who his real kids are and push for DNA tests. Now for the update. The last few days have been eventful to say the least. After the original post, I sat down with my dad and we talked about the issue a bit. I began by apologizing if my behavior upset him, and if he wants me to never bring up the issue again, I won't. He laughed for a bit, as is his nature, then told me how he always liked that I check up on him. It's been a habit of mine ever since I was a kid to check up on my parents if they were upset with me after I had done something that didn't please them. We reminisced a few of those stories before he got to the point. Obviously, the thought that Martin and Mindy might not be his had crossed his mind, but in our culture, being an illegitimate child, or having an affair, or the fact that your wife cheated on you with another man is thought as shameful at the time, so not many people knew outside the family. That's why his previous wife was able to twist the narrative and blame my father and his family for abandoning them. She told her children that my father's sister conspired against her and my dad threw her out, which was why they had so much resentment for him and his family all these years. My father said he doesn't give much value to money, as over the years he's seen many losses and many profits, but he wants to keep his name, so he asked me to never bring up the issue as long as he's alive. Although he did give us the option to seek it after his death. I apologized to him again profusely and told him I'm not interested in ever bringing up the subject ever again. I'm also thinking of talking with my own siblings, and I think they'll be understanding and will accept Dad's wishes. My dad also said while he has had his doubts about Martin, he feels Mindy is his, as she has a striking resemblance to his mother. She died when my dad was 14, and the only picture we have of her is really blurry, so I can see how we missed that. Dad also asked me to be in charge of going over his will with the others, but I told him that was a bad idea, as Mark wouldn't take it well after our last confrontation, so I suggested an older cousin who's a bit younger than Mark. While the cousin is fair and neutral on the subject, Mark doesn't like him one bit cause he's a really successful businessman and Mark is all talk and no show, so it'll be entertaining to say the least. Then I got a call from Mindy last night. I thought she'd blow up on me, but she was very civil the whole time. Out of the three, Mindy is probably the only one who has had some sort of a fatherly relationship with Dad, and the few times she has lashed out was most likely under the influence of her mother. She opened up to me how she has had doubts about her identity her whole life, and me bringing it up really hurt her. I can't go over the whole conversation because of the character limit, but I got what you all were saying. I truly was TA. I never thought that my comments, which I thought were only targeting Mark, could hurt so many people. I ended up apologizing to her and told her how wrong I was and that I had no intention of bringing up the subject ever again. I won't go over the details of Dad's will cause it doesn't matter except my inheritance. While still a lot of money, I won't lie about that, is on the smaller side compared to the others, half siblings included, and that was the intention even before the argument, as I'm the most financially well off amongst the siblings. I realize now how wrong I was, and from now on if I feel the need to defend myself against Mark, or his mother, or anyone else, I'll make sure my comments don't hurt anyone else. Thanks to everyone for opening my eyes to how wrong I was. Comment 1. I remember reading your original post, thanks for the update. I didn't even consider you a huge idiot in your post, but you sound like you have the humility to learn so much from others, especially your father. He sounds like such a reasonable and wise man, and I'm sure he's really proud of how you've turned out. Kudos to you for always striving to be better despite having that one really shitty half-sibling, Mark. Then the original poster responded with, "Thank you, I agree he is a great man who didn't deserve any of this. I was just being foolish by bringing this up, and that unknowingly I hurt a lot of people, but mostly my dad. I won't worry about Mark, he has kept to himself, and Dad has chosen to go no contact with him. My cousin and the lawyers will be doing all the talking from now on. He won't take this lightly, but he'll have to deal with it." Then another commenter responded with, "Your father is no contact with Mark, but he is still planning on giving him an inheritance?" To which the original poster responded with, Mark will get an inheritance eventually. For now, he will just get to know what he'll get. It's definitely life-changing money, but knowing Mark, I know he still won't be happy about it, and how it's unfair to him. That doesn't matter anymore anyway, as it's Dad's final decision and not his. Comment 2. I am glad that you have taken a step back to see how your words can hurt many, whether or not that was the intention. It looks like you guys will be able to move past this and possibly be better for it. Now, for the next story. Am I the idiot for getting my niece's teacher in trouble? Both my sister and brother-in-law work during the week, with my brother-in-law being off Tuesday and Thursday. My sister is only off on weekends, so they needed someone to watch their kid during the days on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. My class schedule allows for me to watch my niece those days, as my classes are online, so I can watch her during the school day. So at the beginning of this school year, my sister emailed the teacher of my niece, 7, that I would be the one assisting in watching the kid as I stated above, and gave permission that she could pass along information on what assignments are due or how to do it, but that if she had a problem she could email my sister or talk to my brother-in-law on the days he is off. The teacher responded, and we didn't have any trouble until recently. My niece does her classwork in my sister's office as it has less distractions for her. I sit in the corner of the room at my sister's desk, out of view of the camera, where I can keep an eye on my niece at her desk while doing my own work. My niece has a learning disability, so she needs to be monitored constantly. Well, yesterday my niece got distracted as usual, and the few times I told her to pay attention didn't work, so I got up from my seat and went over to her and gently touched her shoulder and told her to focus. I was on the camera for maybe 10 seconds at most. Well, after class the teacher called for my niece's parents, and I walked over to respond. She asked where they were, and I informed her that both my sister and brother-in-law were at work and that I could take a message. She refused and said she would email my sister, but that she wanted to talk to me. The teacher told me that I had bothered my niece and should have stayed out of the camera view. I apologized and said I didn't mean to stir any trouble. I was just trying to get my niece back on track. I asked a few questions about the assignments that were due that day, and she refused to tell me. She stated that I was a stranger, and she didn't have permission to tell that information. I informed her she did have permission, as my sister had sent that email stating so. She said my niece could have her parents help her with the homework. Mind you that this homework was due by a certain time, and neither of them got home until way after it was due. I tried telling her this, but she wouldn't listen and ended the meeting. My sister got an email from the teacher scolding her for letting a stranger help my niece with class, and that as my niece's parents, they should be the ones watching her and assisting with class. She furthermore went on to say I was distracting my niece and that I appeared on camera view on purpose to disrupt her class. My sister flipped and emailed the principal, and the teacher got reprimanded. And this morning at class the teacher mentioned in passing that I had gotten her in trouble, and it was rude of me to not talk to her about this stuff. So Reddit, am I the idiot for getting my niece's teacher in trouble? Edit. The principal has been informed of the snide comments the teacher made during my niece's class on Monday. My brother-in-law scheduled a meeting with the principal for Thursday via Zoom, and I have been asked to join since this issue includes me. Now for a few comments before the update. Not the idiot at all. My wife is a special education teacher, and teaching kids with learning disabilities through distance learning is difficult enough. I've heard it because I'm in the same room also working from home. The teacher brought this upon herself. Comment 2. Not the idiot. She's an idiot. Your sister already covered that you would be helping with school. I get that teachers have a bunch of students to keep track of, but she didn't even try to check for the permission you told her about before mouthing off to your sister. She deserves it. Now for the update. At first the principal refused to hold the conference that my sister requested, but he changed his tune quickly when my sister in all her glory had sent the email to the principal saying he better listen to both sides of the story or she would unleash all 7 levels of hell upon the school in the form of lawsuits, which my sister said she had the right to do. My brother-in-law, sister, me, the principal and the teacher to discuss what transpired. The principal had the teacher explain her side first. She told the principal how I had interrupted her class on purpose and distracted my niece from her classwork. I then told my side and mentioned the snide comment that she had made to me the very next time I was with my niece. At first the principal said that there was no concrete proof of what had happened, and it was basically my word against hers. The teacher looked so smug at this, but that fell quickly when we mentioned the class had been recorded. One of my niece's accommodations while doing online classes is the lessons are recorded so she can replay them to better understand the lesson, and the 2 days worth of videos caught the teacher red-handed in her lies and shows what happened. Well, in the end, with the proof from the class recording, it was enough to get the teacher beyond just in trouble. She was fired. Apparently other parents had complained about this teacher, but they didn't have the proof to prove it until my niece's accommodation caught it. As of now, they have a substitute teacher filling in until they can find a new teacher, which according to the principal should be ready to teach in 2 weeks' time. That is all that happened. The teacher went in thinking she wouldn't get in trouble, but we managed to get her fired and get justice for all the other people who had complained about her. Comment 1. That type of jerk has no business being an educator. Thanks for the update. Comment 2. Good. Teachers like that can end up ruining the school experience for a lot of children. Also, a lesson for the teacher: don't start poop, won't be poop. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day. Would I be the idiot for calling off my wedding because my fiancé is extremely frugal? I, female 31, struggle with my fiancé's male 32 frugalness and not sure if I want to marry him anymore after 3 years of relationship. Throwaway, as my fiancé follows my regular account. I met my fiancé 3 years ago. He came out of an abusive marriage just 2 years before we met. One of her absolute abuses was financial. She bled him dry. Made him buy expensive jewelry only to give it away or break it after an argument. Designer shoes, clothes, big house, cars, Caribbean trips. You name it, she made him pay for it. She also took him to the cleaners in the divorce. However, my fiancé is very well off. He makes far over 6 figures, almost 7. On top of that, he inherited a few millions from his grandfather, and his parents gifted him and his siblings also a few cool millions. So yes, the financial abuse was bad, but he does not suffer financially. He has more money than he will ever need. So last year I moved into his house. I do not pay rent, but I split the bills and buy food. I pay for my own clothes and jewelry. I have a good job and I can take care of myself. However, things have been taking a turn for the worse and I feel miserable. His house was empty when I moved in. He had handed me the furniture. Maybe 3 forks and 2 knives. He wouldn't put on the heating, so the house felt cold and moldy. He has no curtains, no decorations. His ex took everything not bolted down, and he was too cheap to replace it. Just imagine $1 million house like that. I am grateful that I can live in his house. It is something I could never afford myself. But I didn't want to live in squalor. So I bought some kitchen supplies, some furniture. But at some point I realized I was dipping in my savings all the time and he did nothing. I looked into the curtains, but those things are expensive. His house has so many windows, it is crazy. I didn't want to pay for this anymore. I told him I needed a fund to furnish his house. He blew up at me that I was just with him for his money. I pointed out all the money I spent on his house. The gifts and the trips, because he pays for nothing ever. Because he wants to be sure I am not here for the money. The fact is, if we break up, I have nothing. The house is not mine. If I spend all my savings on his house, I will be left with absolutely nothing. He wants a prenup and I am fine with that, but I can't help but feel used. Next to that, I am jealous of his ex-wife. I feel like she got treated and I am neglected. He proposed to his ex on a cruise with a $10,000 white gold diamond ring. I got the rhodium-plated Swarovski stuff that might cost like $100. The proposal was at a picnic in the park I organized, paid groceries for and slaved in the kitchen for. I almost said no out of pure disappointment. However, I am afraid to bring it up and to be called a gold digger. I don't want to be funding a millionaire's lifestyle. He loves everything as long as I pay for it. As soon as he has to pay, it is frivolous, unnecessary. I can live like a poor person by myself. At least the fact there are literal millions lying around doesn't hang over me to bum me out. And I would just be paying for my own lifestyle. Would I be the idiot for calling off a wedding purely for financial reasons? Because I love this man, but I imagine our cheap wedding in contrast to his ex, her extravaganza. Will our future kids be able to have some luxuries? Or only if I pay for it? What if I ever become a stay-at-home mom? Will I have to beg to put the heating on? Edited to answer questions I see a lot. I know the abuse is not made up. His family and friends told me separate stories of the abuse they witnessed. Not only did it confirm it, it showed me she was way more terrible than I thought. Like stealing heirloom jewelry of his grandma with Alzheimer's right after she was widowed. pretending she was gifted these things even though everyone knew Grandma hated her guts. I did not realize or see he is doing the same to me as she was to him, and he is, subconsciously, punishing me for what was done to him. I am not trying to force a lifestyle on him where he was previously happy. He told me prior to moving in that he left his house like this because he was depressed after his wife took everything, even the curtains, that it makes him sad and he wants a cozy home. He just didn't know where to start. His house is paid off, thanks to Granddad. He isn't actually spending much on utilities either. The house is very well isolated and has solar panels. It is weird to see how cheap being rich really is. I am not asking for designer furniture. IKEA all the way, and I have refurbished second-hand furniture myself. I am actually pretty thrifty. I see where my jealousy over her lifestyle might have triggered some people. Let me explain. A $10,000 ring is insane and stupid to me. I do not want that because I would fear losing it every day. I don't need an over-the-top wedding. However, it almost feels like he made an effort. Wanted to give her what made her happy. Put effort and thought in it. With me, it almost feels like he wants to prove how little he can give me. He talked about how he would see the wedding and it is cheaper than my actually financially struggling cousin's wedding. I can't help but feel he wants to demonstrate how cheap he can treat me. And I already feel embarrassed about the family that would have been to both, and I will feel like the discount wife. I don't like to say it, but it feels like he gets off on it to some extent. We are almost talking about washing paper plates at this moment. Yes, I did discuss selling the mansion I really don't need and moving to a more modest house. Especially knowing this is the house his ex picked. He doesn't want to do that. He loves this house. But I feel really intimidated living in a house I could never afford anyway. And so many large windows. I haven't talked to him yet, but pausing on the marriage and counseling is a must. I already am looking for an IC because I realized I might indeed be too much of a people pleaser, allowing him to control me with the ghost of his ex. I also am going to separate for a while. I am looking to rent something for a few months so I can get some space. Now, for a few comments before the update. Not the idiot. I understand you've had some trauma in your past, and I'm sorry you went through that. But I can't allow you to mistreat me because of it. It burns me up inside that you gave her everything, but I have to beg for the bare minimum. I deserve to feel cherished by my partner, as I have cherished you. Comment 2. Counseling. Insist on premarital counseling. He is reacting to his divorce and his feelings about it by taking it out on you. Don't spend another dime on him or his house. But I do suggest you two do some entertaining. Invite his family and friends over. Your family and friends. If he wants you to pay half, do so, but only within your budget. Invite 20 people over to sit on the floor and eat frozen lasagna and drink Crystal Light off paper plates. Without heat or air conditioning. Open the curtains and shed light on how you live. Now for the update. Okay, I hope this update makes sense because I am very confused and not really doing that well at the moment. Well, Reddit, you changed my life. Thank you so much for all your ideas and insights. Honestly, I don't think I would have had the courage to do what I did without you guys. I went to therapy, took the day off just to get my racing mind to calm down. Therapy has confirmed things you guys suspected. I am a people pleaser. I wanted to save him, and I have internalized the idea that any effort and every penny I want him to spend on me makes me a gold digger. I will have weekly sessions to work on me. I realized I would have never taken this treatment from any of my exes, even though I made more than them. The idea I had to prove myself worthy to be with a millionaire and not be in there for the money got into my head pretty early. I called one of his siblings I am pretty close with and just told her everything. She was not surprised but just sad about how unhappy he was making me. She told me that from the day we started he had this idea that I was out of his league. He struggled to understand why I wanted to be with him, and he probably just thought, it must be my money. She told me she already talked to him in the past to treat me better. She was furious about the proposal. This information confused me a little. I was a little hurt she never discussed any of this before, but she thought it was none of her business. She also explained how she and her husband organized their finances. He also doesn't have as much as her. I took the opportunity to pack a bag. I haven't found a place yet, but I am going to stay with my parents. I made up my mind that I will at least want 6 months apart to get myself in order. I made sure my stuff was in the car because honestly I had no idea how the conversation would go. So into the most difficult part. The talk. I waited for him to come home. He was pretty late, but I didn't want to sleep another night on this. Pretending I was fine while I was contemplating all this just ate me up. I had written down what I wanted to say. I have never been so scared before. I didn't want to hurt him, and I didn't know how he would react. I took some advice from here. I said that I was moving out and that I wanted to pause our engagement. He was very quiet and just sat down. I told him he really hurt me by calling me a gold digger and that I am done walking on eggshells and feeling guilty for just wanting basic things. I told him I was unhappy and felt neglected. I also told him that after 3 years of me showing up for him, he still doesn't think I am here for him. It is not going to happen. He was just quiet. He didn't say anything. I told him that the constant comparison to his ex was unhealthy and unfair. Punishing me for her sins was abusive. I told him comparing her to me all the time has triggered me comparing myself to her and starting to feel like she was worth more than me. One of the things about her was mostly ungratefulness. He would do nice things for her, but it was never enough. The thing is, he doesn't do nice things for me and I have to be grateful for the pleasure of picking up the bill. I told him he was not ready for marriage. That I dreaded having kids with him and living like this. That is, I didn't trust he would take care of me if I would become a stay-at-home mom. And at that point I just called him abusive and a user. I was getting pretty angry saying all this out loud. Losing my composure and script a little bit. He remained quiet with almost no emotion on his face. I stayed quiet but nothing came out, so I decided that I would just leave. Only when I got up to go did he say please don't go. He asked me if I was pausing the wedding or calling it off. He wanted to know if it was over or if he still had a shot. I told him I wanted out of this house. I honestly don't want to live in his ex or palace of sadness anymore. I needed him to go to therapy and especially financial therapy. I needed a separation. I told him I was open to couples counseling if he went into IC. He begged me not to do the separation, but honestly I really wanted it. I just told him to think about it, and I left him. He was finally showing some emotions. He was crying at this point. He sent me a very long text somewhere in the AM. Told me he was a wreck and couldn't sleep. He made all kinds of promises. He would go into therapy, sell his house, buy a smaller one and make sure I am taken care of whatever happens. He said he would help me decorate, and we will make a home. He again asked me to please come home. But to me it doesn't feel like home there anyway. I feel very empty and tired. I have been sleeping most of the day. I feel guilty but also a little bit relieved, if that makes sense. I don't know if I actually want back if he does all that. I am a little unsteady right now. I need some time to process. I will go back for the kitchen supplies and my TV. I won't take anything else from the furniture. This is the exact same reason I was unwilling to buy everything. His house is huge, so the couch is huge. I can't take it. Comment 1. If you go back, it needs to be after he has started doing the work for an extended period of time. Not just a few weeks. People will promise you the sun and stars, but once they get you back it suddenly isn't a priority, and they'll start fulfilling all these promises later. Or they'll put in real effort for a few weeks and then slide back into their old comfortable complacency. Talk about what he needs to work on, and if he does it and sticks to it for 6 months to a year, then I'd be willing to consider that things are turning around. He doesn't need to do everything perfect right away, but he needs to keep trying and continuing with therapy and strategies that you both feel comfortable with. Comment 2. You're the idiot. In an absolutely monumental way, who do you think you are, expecting a man who was financially abused and taken advantage of to just forget about his past and shower you with the wealth he's worked so hard for? You've been with him for 3 years and you're already complaining about his house and the way he chooses to spend his money, even though it's very clear that he's been through a traumatic experience. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day. Am I the idiot for telling my girlfriend how I actually met my friends? My roommate, 22F, who I've been sharing an apartment with for the past 6 months, approached me a few weeks ago to discuss the possibility of hosting an orgy. I can imagine most people in my situation being surprised or disturbed or whatever if their roommate asked for permission to allow random people to have sex in their personal space. I was not too surprised or disturbed because 6 months has been more than enough time for me to realize that my roommate is an extremely sexual person and she's not shy about showing it. I'm a virgin. My roommate is aware of that, And even though from time to time she teases me about it, she's never made me feel bad and always seemed proud of me for being so chilled about sex. Back to the orgy. My roommate asked if it was okay if the orgy could happen at our apartment. She said 7 people were expected to participate, all friends, and she would be the 8th. She answered all of my questions regarding the logistics and promised to leave the place spotless when it was over. To be honest, I didn't really care as long as no one did anything in my room or touched my gaming console. My roommate was over the moon when I said yes. I arranged to sleep at my mom's house on the night of the orgy to avoid any awkwardness, which made my roommate feel somewhat guilty for kicking me out. But I encouraged her to focus on the fricking because I'll be focusing on my mom's good cooking lol. A few days after that conversation, my roommate asked if I was interested in taking part in the orgy. I said if this was about me staying at my mom's house for one night, she really shouldn't feel bad. My roommate said it's not only about that but also about hospitality. She said the group agreed that I was more than welcome to join if I wanted. I laughed and said thanks but no thanks. My roommate advised me to think about it and said I should keep in mind that a virgin guy would be very hot for the group and I would most likely receive special treatment. She also added that before I made a final decision, I should forget what I've seen in movies or porn and therefore should not be expecting everyone to have 10 bodies. I said I would think about it. The orgy is happening tonight. I eventually agreed to participate. It wasn't a quick decision. I did have time. It's been weeks of talking. I've been added to the orgy group chat. Everyone in the group has been welcoming and open to answering my questions. A big topic of discussion was boundaries. At one point it felt like I was doing and asking me anything because everyone was asking me what I was comfortable/uncomfortable with. Not gonna lie, I'm getting more and more overwhelmed and I'm beginning to stress out. As helpful and supportive as my roommate and the others have been, I need to ask all of you to weigh in. A 22-year-old virgin in an orgy, should I be excited or should I be nervous? Update. My original post was long enough, so to spare all of you from reading another novel, I'm just gonna list the key information. It's still long though. Sorry. It's close to midnight on my side of the planet. What a night. By the time I've added this update, the orgy would have been over in less than 2 hours. I helped my roommate set up the space in the apartment we were all gonna use for sex. She made sure there were condoms, scented candles, lube, towels, water, etc. I hardly recognized the place when she was done with it. My roommate was running me through the process one-on-one for the final time and once again made sure I understood that I should never feel pressured to perform anything or to please anyone regardless of prior agreements. The group arrived sometime afterwards. All of us socialized at first. I learned a lot about the group. Everyone was friendly and interested to know how I was feeling. I realized very quickly that I was attracted to one of the girls in the group more than the others, but none of them were bad looking. Once the socializing was out of the way, my roommate explained what the rules and the safe words were before formally introducing me to the group and reminding everyone that I skipped my mom's cooking to be there, so I needed to be treated with extra care and appreciation lol. So much was discussed before anything sexual happened. Most of it was information everyone already knew based on previous discussions. But some of it was new to me, like the conversational sex option, which basically meant you could have a sexual conversation with one or more people who had no desire to have sex yet, but don't mind saying filthy things to one another to get them in the mood. Boundaries were discussed. Questions were answered. Challenges in the past were addressed. It was a proper meeting. My legs were freaking shaking when that meeting eventually came to an end. 11. My roommate gave everyone the green light to proceed and she wasted no time taking me under wing. My roommate and I were sitting on the couch while the others were beginning to touch and kiss one another. She was holding my hand and telling me how nice I smelled. I said thank you and returned the compliment. We continued complimenting each other until we were both comfortable enough to kiss. I can't tell you how long we kissed, but when my roommate and I were no longer locking lips, I noticed some of the other people were wearing a lot less. This might sound weird, but seeing naked bodies on full display like that became uncomfortable and overwhelming. I told my roommate how I was feeling and she asked me to follow her to the balcony to get some fresh air and for a change of scenery. During my time on the balcony, the girl who I was most attracted to in the group, before I kissed my roommate at least, decided to join my roommate and I on the balcony and find out how I was doing. Her hair was shorter than mine, but it was hot. The three of us talked for a few minutes before I said I was willing to continue. Short-haired girl performed oral on me when I finally managed to get hard. I never came. My nerves got the best of me. I apologized to the group and said I would feel much better if I could go to my room because I'm struggling to relax. I made it clear to all of them that they did nothing wrong, but it just wasn't for me, at least not for now. Everyone was really understanding and wished me good night. I've been in my room ever since. The apartment is quiet now. I have no idea how many people have gone home and how many are sleeping over, but I'm sure I'll find out in the morning. Not the best ending, but I have no regrets. I'm sure I'll lose my virginity when the time comes. Anyway, the end. I'm going to try and get some sleep now. Thank you all for the advice. Now for a few comments before the first update. Just to let you know, there is one more update after this one. Comment 1. It's an experience, and a damn unique one at that. Anxiety is to be expected, but people like this tend to know the rules and be super respectful about other people's boundaries. So if nothing else, just sit back, have a drink, a talk, and see where it gets you. Also, you don't have to go all the way, just the fact that you stepped out of your comfort zone to do this is a huge win, and by gods, keep us updated. Comment 2. I don't personally think it sounds like you're really ready for this, but other comments seem to disagree. If it's something you're feeling really stressed and nervous about, I'd rather back out and go enjoy your mom's cooking instead. I think you should really consider if this is something you might regret later on. If you do participate, just remember you can back out at any moment if you change your mind. I'll admit I'm not the most sex-positive person in this subreddit, but perhaps my slightly different perspective is something of interest to someone. Now for the update. A couple of nights ago, my GF was supposed to meet my friends. I've been delaying the process for months because I knew I had to have an uncomfortable conversation first. I met my friends at an orgy. My roommate at the time asked for my permission to host an orgy at our flat. I said yes, as long as my room and my belongings were off limits, and the flat was cleaned properly afterwards. My plan was to spend the night at my mom's house and be out of everyone's way during the orgy, but my roommate encouraged me to stay and participate. I was still a virgin back then. The thought of sleeping with one person was overwhelming enough, let alone a group of people. However, my roommate eventually convinced me to take part. I was added to a group chat with all the people who were gonna be involved in the orgy. All of them made me feel really comfortable. That being said, when the orgy finally happened, I was unable to have sex with anyone. My anxiety won. Everyone was understanding though. Life went on. My roommate became my ex-roommate after a few months, but we never stopped being friends. The connections I made with the people at the orgy also developed into friendships. We're still friends now. My GF didn't know my history with them until earlier this week when I finally had the courage to explain the orgy story. She was shocked and disturbed and asked if I lied to her about being a virgin when we met. I said no. She struggled to believe that a virgin guy would walk away from an orgy with his virginity still intact. My GF made it clear that she was no longer interested in meeting my friends. She said she didn't know how she could be in a relationship with someone who was friends with people who shared him. I asked my GF if she was breaking up with me, and she said she was gonna need some time to decide what to do. Last night she decided. Our relationship is over. Now for a few comments before the second update. Comment 1. The real orgy is the friends we made along the way. Comment 2. We have to just put it up as individual preference. If a guy/girl are uncomfortable with partners with a sexual history, then that's their preference and choice. Move on and find someone who shares your open mind. Some people think it's related to lack of maturity, but I personally believe that it's based on individual morals. Nobody is at fault, it's just that your morals didn't align. Now for the update. My mom and dad invited me to have dinner at their house a few nights ago. I was planning to inform them about my breakup during dinner, but I realized it was too late when I showed up at the house. My parents were already informed. The dinner invitation was a smokescreen to confront me about the details. My ex-GF apparently broke the news to my mom and dad soon after our relationship came to an end. My parents knew about the orgy, the friends I made at the orgy, and why my GF no longer wanted anything to do with me. It was an ambush. Or an intervention. I don't know. But it was awkward. My mom wanted me to make her believe that my ex-GF lied and that I never participated in group sex. I confirmed what my ex-GF said was true. My mom looked disturbed and asked if I got tested. I assured her that I was clean and that it's almost been a year since the orgy. My dad looked equally disturbed and asked if I was really friends with people who openly shared their bodies like that. I said yes and described them as good friends. I even told my dad that one of my friends who openly shared her body also openly shared her homemade lasagna that my dad enjoyed eating when he was sick. I asked my mom if she remembered the DJ with the tattoos that stepped in at the last minute at my sister's wedding because the original DJ dropped out. My mom said yes. I asked my mom if she remembered that DJ playing some of her favorite golden oldies like Flashdance, What a Feeling, and Stand By Me. My mom said yes. I asked my mom if she could guess how it came to be that I knew that DJ. My mom said, "Oh." I told my parents not to worry about me and advised them to avoid communicating with my ex-GF because whatever was happening between us was between us. Towards the end of the dinner, my mom and dad knew a lot more about my orgy friends and seemed less uncomfortable. I think once the shock of me being involved in an orgy fades away, my parents might be keen to meet my friends one day. Hopefully that day never comes though. Comment 1. No offense, but I'm glad you're out of that relationship. Someone that goes sharing your private business to your parents about your personal adult matters isn't someone to be building a life with. Comment 2. Not sure I like how your parents thought it was any of their business, but it sounds like a pretty decent outcome, all things considered. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.